All right, today we're going to talk about bills of materials, purchase orders, and getting ready to make your device. Now, in the world of embedded systems, remember hardware, software. And so very often you need to work the hardware and software concurrently at the same time. So today is going to be more of the concentration on the hardware, and then we'll start to address the software later. One of the reasons why is come in. And so we're going to take a look at how you're going to go about preparing and identifying what parts are needed. So I want to make sure sound is good. We're going to talk about a bill of materials. Now, I covered this, I believe, in the embedded systems class in the fall, but I need to go into a little bit more detail here. Let's say you're doing a computer design, or in our case, an embedded system design. And remember, we did systems engineering the other day. Specifically, we talked about, oh yeah, you have, let's call it our device, right? So in our device, we're going to have mechanical parts, and we're going to have electrical parts, and then of course you're going to have the software, and you're going to have pubs. In other words, publications that instruct somebody how to use this. Now, when we did phones, we also had something here called accessories. And I'm going to keep that in mind too, because if we're talking about our device, our nameplate, or rather the message board that we're putting on our door, it's going to have certain parts on it that are things that we need to manufacture ourselves, but it may also have parts that we can simply purchase. One of those examples is the wall wart, or the transformer, that all you want to do is you want to buy the transformer and plug it in. Easy enough. And actually, think about it, one of the cheapest transformers you could have is, and you've seen this all over the place, is what? The little one that comes for your phone, right? That has a USB in one end and whatever the plug is for the other. And in fact, those are so inexpensive that they give them away at job fairs and other events like that, right? So maybe it would be the perfect thing for you to include in your device. And you would also have in that device, or in your entire device, you would have the cable that would be needed to go from one place to another. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what I would see as a bill of materials or a roll-up in one type of orientation or one type of design, and then I'm going to show you another that would be a table. So let's take a look at this. Now, here we have all of these different devices, and as I said, mechanical, electrical, software, publications, accessory. What else do you think your product would have that needs to be manufactured, delivered, whatever, that's available when somebody buys your product? You think it could be pretty much subsumed in all of this? All right, so let's take a, let's identify some of the major parts. Remember in our phone exercise the other day, we had, remember I said 5 major parts. Oh, that's where I talked about the roll-up. 5 major parts. Front, back, keyboard, the PCB, and then there was a plasticky thing, all right? So now when we think about the major parts that come in a box for our product that you're going to sell, right? So what are we going to have for this? Oh, so I got to include one more because I just said it. Packaging. So what is going to come in our device that you're going to sell? Say that again?
The device itself.
Okay, the device itself. Now, the device is going to be boxy looking, right? Hopefully it's thin. It could have a battery in it. It could not, depending on what your design is. It will have a connection, most likely, to it. So then you also have to identify what your particular device is. And I'll just put in here thin, boxy, right? With the LCD and everything else. So what else would come with your product? All right, so we have a cable, and this will go from the charger to something, right? So I'm going to have the transformer. All right? We're in the U.S., so we'll do the U.S. version first. Now, in my design, I'll just have this as an example. I'm going to have a flex cable. And so the flex cable, which has a connector at one end and the connector at another end, will go between, so it goes between device and charger cable. Because I've kind of talked about that, right? It would be very thin, routed against the door, and you don't necessarily need it. So here's the thing: is that this could be nothing more than an extension cable from this, right? So this has at one end USB, and this has at the other end something, whatever that is. All right, what else do you think we need? User manual. And what's the trend today in user manuals?
Every language.
Every language and the full operation of this? Or a quick reference guide that will say, and go to this location for more detail, right? So it could be enough to just get you started, and if you want more, go to this web page and you can get all the information you need, all right? So user manual, all right? What else do we need? Box would be very good. Now think about all of these quote-unquote deliverables, right? Every single one of them will be a separate part altogether that needs to be worked on, that needs to be manufactured, that needs to be sourced, that needs to have documentation, needs to have detail. And so if we were to take a look at your typical roll-up of any device, you would have our example like this. We have our product, which will consist of the box, will consist of the user manual, will consist of the flex cable, which will consist of the transformer, I say cable, I'll call this power. Power cable, and then the device itself. Now here's where it gets rather interesting. If you look at all this stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yep. How many of you want to manufacture a transformer? No, right? You would rather have something that supplies 5 volts that you could plug a cable into. So this is a OEM. We're going to buy it. If we buy 10,000 of these things, we could probably get them for about maybe $1 each, maybe. All right. Now, when it comes to the power cable, as long as you don't purchase or build for that matter, a very constrained one, like the Apple Blade, right? That's really, how many of you have Apple phones? Oh, nobody, right? Okay. Yeah, one of you? All right, Gary. I forgot, when I was in India and I asked how many phones, maybe one did. Everybody has some sort of Android, right? Because they're a lot cheaper, right? Yeah. They're more what? Oh, they're simpler to use? Oh, I thought that was the whole reason for Apple phones, is they're for idiots like me. All right, so proprietary, that's what I'm thinking. So at one end you have the USB-A type of connector at one end, and at the other end you have I don't know, choose what's the more popular ones now? The Mini, the USB-C. All right, to USB-C. And then that means that when we have this flex cable, I can almost assure you it's not going to be a standard cable. So you need to find something like, you'll need to actually manufacture this, all right? So we know that this is going to have to be manufactured by us. I can almost assure you that we can have only 3 parts for that cable, and I'll look at that in a moment. The user manual has to be manufactured and created for us as well, right? But we're going to be smart. We're just going to have it printed, right? So it's going to be a fold out, right? Let's say 11 by 17 thin paper that you fold up, and that's good enough for them. How about that? That's easy. That's just one piece. The box might be a little bit more intricate, because it may require you to do or have somebody cut it and stuff like that. So that obviously is going to need some design. You all have, did you turn your TI box back in? Yeah. All right. So if you remember the TI box, Texas Instruments Launchpad box, it had special place for you to put the board. It had little folds in it and places to put other parts. You know, you may have to do that as well, so that we'll look at that a little bit more in detail. And then you have the device itself. All right? So let's expand. Oh, let's just look at the flex cable. So if we look at the flex cable, and it'll be the flex cable assembly. So it is going to require what parts? Well, it has the USB-C male connector at one end and a USB-C female at the other end. So we're going to make it like an extension cable. Well, that's interesting. And then it's, of course, we're going to buy the flex cable. And then to manufacture this, you're going to need solder. And let's see, do you think you might need to put some plastic cases around each end? You think? All right. So we'll say male end mechanical enclosure and the female end mechanical enclosure. So anytime you manufacture anything, it's always better not to use fasteners, especially in something like this where all you need to do is snap it together and it's assembled. So maybe on this we'll say upper part and lower part. So again, we have upper and lower. And they're probably going to be different types of enclosures because it can't be the exact same on both ends. Probably not. And this is, again, just an example. Now, along that same lines, you may also give it some glue. I didn't leave enough room in there. So that you squish glue on both sides and then you squish it together. And it snaps together. And since you have glue there, then it kind of stays in place. So this would be the roll-up of that. So what would our bill of materials for this be? I'm going to call this upper M, lower M, upper M, lower M, right? So the bill of materials for this particular would be, and this is where you need to get a little bit more specific, you will number each one of your parts, and depending on which part it is, in fact here, we'll look at this, maybe we'll say that everything in the box is going to have the number 1XXXX, 5 digits for this. This will be 2XXXX. The flex cable itself will be starting with 3XXXX. The transformer will call 4XXXX. Even though you're buying it from somebody else, you're going to give it your own part number because you never know. One day you may buy a transformer that can source 0.5 milliamp. And the next day you may find out that there's a 550 milliamp model that is 10 cents cheaper, and you'll go for that one. And who knows, you might change manufacturer of these from one Chinese company to another Chinese company, right? Since everything is made in China. And you need to give that a new part number as well. And so here we're going on the power cable. This will be 5XXXX, X being a digit, a set of digits. And then the device itself is going to be 6XXXX. All right? So we gave our flex cable 3XXXXX. All right? So here we're going to go in the bill of materials for, and here's the interesting thing, our entire cable assembly is going to be called 3000. And as a part of that, the male part, even though we buy it from somewhere else, will be 3001. This is 3002. The flex cable is going to be 3003. Solder is actually a general thing, and so we'll just call solder as a general supply. It'll be given the number 9000. We have this upper male enclosure, which for grins, I'll call 3010, which is made up of the upper part, 30,011, 30,012, and then the female end of the enclosure, which I'll call 3020. This will be 3021, 3022, and again, glue is a general stuff, and so that will be my part number 90,001. Sorry, this is 30022, it's not 3000. So my bill of materials for cable assembly $3,000 will be the following. It will be, and then we're going to have what quantity do you need, part number, and a description. So we're going to need one, part number 3000 or 30,001. This is the USB-C male connector. And then this is where it also gets interesting, is that you need to identify where you get this from and what their part number is. So this could be source and their part number. So in this case, you're going to say I'm going to DigiKey, and their part number is blah, 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 blah. All right? Part 1, 3000 or 30,002, USB-C female. This would be connector or socket? Oh, it doesn't matter. We'll just call it that. And this comes from DigiKey as well, with some part number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with all the other parts, and this will make up your bill of materials. Now, one thing I should add too is we're going to go with, how long should our flex cable be? 1, 2, 3 feet? We'll use meters. How many meters? 1 entire, that's a pretty long cable. You know, shoot for half a meter? Let's do half a meter, all right? We're going to go one quantity. This is 30003. This is 0.5 meters flex cable. Soldered tip. And we're going to get this from Smith Manufacturing, and they're going to have that certain number for them, for an example. All right, you'll keep on going for all of your bill of materials for your device. All right. So do people understand what is going to be required for the bill of materials? Do you want me to do an example for our actual device? All right, let's go ahead and do that. Now remember, for our device, it had several parts. And our device that we said is, we'll call this 6000. And it will be made up of the mechanical enclosure. It'll be made up of the printed circuit board. So it'll just be a snap it in. Well, that's pretty easy. So our mechanical enclosure, we'll just call this 6001. There you go. And our printed circuit board, we'll start at 60,010. So what is made up of the printed circuit board? Well, it is actually the populated printed circuit board. So you obviously need a printed circuit board unpopulated. And this will be your 60011, for example. And how many of you chose a TI MSP 430? All right, so let's say we have for the printed circuit board, oops, it is unpopulated. Well, hold it, we got the PCB, so that's right. So we're going to need the processor, microcontroller, MSP 430, G2553, for example, right? We'll just do that. And we'll call this 60012. And then you're going to have, well, remember with our flex cable that we had, it goes from male to female. And from here, we said USB-C. So we probably want to Let's see, what is it, the male or female that you plug into a phone? Is it the male? So that means that it's going to be a female on this part, right? So USB-C female connector. By the way, have we used that already? Right there, right? So we can use it again, 30002, provided it's in the right orientation, right? Because some of them have pins that go straight out, some of them go at an angle, so it all depends on the particular connector that you have. For example, if you ever saw a RS-232 cable, the cable itself has a completely different connector than what you would find on your Renesas board, for example. Because for your Renesas board, it has pins that go out and then down, and I cannot remember, anybody have the Renesas board with them? Is it surface mount or is it through hole for that? It is surface mount? All right, so let's say it is surface mount, but it also has some sort of anchor to keep it in there and make it hold it really, really tight. Well, for a cable, it's just a connector with the pins coming straight out that you solder wires onto. So it's a completely different part altogether. So what else do we have for one of these other devices? Oh, you know what? I have mechanical enclosure. Did we say that we're gonna snap those together without any screws? All right, so that means we don't need screws for that application. Female connector, of course we have the LCD or paper ink, or electronic paper, electronic ink, whatever you want to call this, right? And then you have other parts on this too. And when you would do your bill of material, for device, again, you're going to have the quantity, your part number, your description, your source, and your part number. So we'll have quantity 1. I'm going to look at your processor, 60012. Bill of materials for your device. Remember, this is part number 6. TI MSP 430 G2553 as an example. We'll get this again from DigiKey, and their part number is whatever their part number is. All the way down. Now the thing that's important to know about this is that once you have identified your bill of materials for your device, by the way, this is going to be for the assignment for next week, and you should type it. You need to identify how that's going to be, or you're going to have to purchase these. Now, when you're doing it in manufacturing, you're going to order thousands of these. But for our case, you're going to be ordering one of these. One processor, one of this, one of that, one of the other thing. So you're going to have a purchase requisition form that you will need to fill out. Sometimes these are done actually electronically. It could actually dump the bill of materials, or because of your schematic design, you could print out a bill of materials and then maybe even route that to DigiKey or some of your other vendors along with the order. But since we're doing stuff a little bit antiquated here, we have a printed, or I should say a hard copy purchase order, but you're going to type this in. This is an Excel spreadsheet. So here you'll need to type in the date. By the way, this is going to be due on Tuesday next week. Don't worry about this up here. Don't worry about any of this up here. This just tells me whose it is. Then you're going to fill in the quantity that you need. By the way, everything is going to be a unit of 1. It would be different if, for example, it was resistors, a bag of resistors. Don't worry about it. Then the description, including the part number from that vendor, how much the unit price is, and once you put in a quantity and a unit price, this field will automatically fill. The other important aspect of this is all the way at the bottom, suggested vendors. Actually, I want you to identify the actual vendor. So you got to make sure that whatever you need, for example, DigiKey, is actually available at DigiKey. Now, there are a lot of parts out there in DigiKey where they have 0 quantity on hand, and they could order it for you. Aren't they really nice? Don't get any of those parts. You only want parts where they have it in stock, because if you order something that's out of stock, you're going to be out of luck, because it's not going to come in any certain amount of time. So let's take a look. So here's a filled out one, and this is, guess where it's for? SparkFun. There you go. So we put SparkFun down there. So here we have, oh, look at this. We're going to look at the XB Pro. That's not the ones that you're getting. Series 2B. And here is the part number that we're going to order it from at SparkFun. WRL-10419. So I know that if I go to the SparkFun website and I put this in my shopping cart, I'll be able to order something from there. Second, GPS breakout with the part number, I like this, Bob, 11818. And protoboard, PRT08811, all right? We put in the quantity of those that we want to order, how much the unit price are, it automatically computes that, automatically computes this. Here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get all of these from you next week. And I'm going to put all of the SparkFun ones together and make a big SparkFun order. And then I'm going to put all of the DigiKey ones together and do a big DigiKey order. And then I'm going to put all the Mouser ones together and do a Mouser order. So it would be really good if you, to begin with, identified a vendor which is a common vendor. In other words, Amazon is not a common vendor. Amazon is all over the place, all right? Adafruit, that's a single one. I mean, you can go to, for example, I like this. You can go to Amazon, say, oh, I want this Adafruit part, or you can go to the Adafruit website and get that part number, and it's the same thing. I just had this happen with somebody. I think it was like $9 in Amazon and $2.95 in Adafruit. Go figure. So you are going to fill out one of these purchase orders for every separate company. And you could put all the parts for DigiKey on one, and then all the parts for SparkFun on another, and all the parts for, I don't know, Mouser for another, and all the parts for Radio Shack for another, etc. So that means that if you go out and you buy one part from there, and one part from there, and one part from there, and one part from there, you're going to have to fill out 10 different, 11, whatever number of purchase orders you have, and you will make my life very miserable, all right? Please don't do that. One thing I do need to ask you to do is, after the name, go ahead and put your team name. It'll be on your file name as well, but just put your team name there too. Now comes the question with respect to, all right, who do I buy from? So as I've mentioned before, good places to buy from that we have agreements with, that is really easy. are companies like DigiKey. DigiKey has almost everything. Mouser, Newark, Future, I think it's called Future Electronics, SparkFun. Now we have a lot of people wanting to go after Adafruit. What's another good one? Idea. Who have you been looking at? Which one? RS. Do they have stuff that DigiKey doesn't have? Yeah, I would check on that. All right. Element. What is it called again? 14? 40? 14. Element 14. We have an agreement with them too. Oh, you might need some mechanical parts too. So, McMaster Carr. I'm trying to think who else. Pardon me? Arrow. So I would prefer you go in this order. In other words, DigiKey, Mouser, Newark. You know, even if something is available at DigiKey and it's $1 more than buying it at Mouser, choose DigiKey. Well, let's step back. Let's say you can get a lot of parts at DigiKey, but there's one part that you can get at Mouser, and it's $1 more than DigiKey. Just take that and put it on the DigiKey, because with every order and the price of materials, what else do you have to pay? Shipping, right? So if I'm buying a $1 part at Mouser, and it's going to cost me $10 in shipping, have I now just saved any money? Or, you know, it's $1 more at DigiKey. Have I saved any money by buying it at Mouser as the only part? No. So, in fact, that's the reason why I'm buying all this stuff at, you know, I'm going to put all of your orders together and do a bulk order. So, I have pretty much covered right now what I wanted to say for purchase orders and bill of materials. Do you have any questions about that subject? Being none, thank you very much.